Hey guys, Leeway Preface here, and welcome to another Madness Ride. And as you can probably guess from the title of today's episode, I really have some things to question about some of the things that occurred in this week's news. But we'll start the show and I'll tell you about them. Our first one actually will come as a bit of a shock to anyone who has watched Sesame Street at any point in their lives. Apparently Big Bird is trying to teach you left-wing ideals. Now, this little bit of news actually comes from an extreme right-wing journalist by the name of Ben Shapiro. Now, he promotes himself as an investigative journalist, but I'm looking at some of the evidence here and I'm thinking that investigative is, what's the word I could use? A glorification? I mean, I've read this article here and I'm thinking he does not really investigate. What he's actually done, instead of promoting a view based on the evidence, he's actually presenting evidence to support his view. And that is an extremely dangerous direction to go. I mean, as a journalist, you expose the facts. You don't promote your own ideals, and it's that which really pulls him out of the group of journalists he claims to be in, and basically puts him in the same group as paparazzi. Right? They just want to cause a shock. And that's essentially what Ben Shapiro is doing. I mean, some of the other things he's actually talked about, and I don't just mean the left-wing ideals that are supposedly rampant in television, is that American Jews are only Jewish by name because they do support an anti-Israeli president. Okay. You gotta kind of stop there. Because, alright, maybe they do not like the fact that he's anti-Israeli. Maybe there is something else in there that's made them think, well, I actually quite like what he's thinking. Belief is a very, very complex thing, and you cannot say that because you are this, you cannot be, because you believe this, you cannot be this. It's very, very dangerous to think that. Alright? And another thing he's actually said is that the show MacGyver encourages Americans to believe that guns are bad. Well, I unfortunately have to agree with MacGyver on this one. Guns are bad. Alright? Okay, yes, it's more along the lines of the people who wield them are bad. But when you consider the fact that there are more people who wield them who are completely, what's the word I could use, indiscriminate with their shooting, yeah, you can understand why MacGyver does not use firearms of any shape or description. In reality, this guy's just gone, well, this is what I believe, here's the evidence, therefore I'm right. And in actual fact, I've had to put up with that a fair bit, and I'm personally sick of it. You either find the evidence to support you, you either change your views to support the evidence that's available and find a lot of evidence, or you just shut up. Alright, in the same vein as our last article, Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone has said that the reason for Bahrain's uprising has a lot to do with the number of overeducated people. Now, this has a bit of a connection to Ben Shapiro in the fact that both these guys have, well, they've taken a view and just found evidence to support it, alright, without realising that there's actually evidence to the contrary. The problem, especially with Bernie's belief, is the fact that he's lost consideration for the fact that people with a decent education actually have a bit more of an idea as to what's going on in the world, what can change about the world. They have a more well-formed view, and it's essentially these guys who end up being the leaders of the world. I mean, not everyone can be a sheep. Alright? And essentially, if you don't have the mental capacity to turn around and say, well, you know what, this doesn't seem right, then you're no better than a sheep. Alright? Humanity is not a mindless is not full of mindless drones, which is what annoys me about what Bernie Ecclestone is implying here. Alright? Ignorance, unfortunately, is not always bliss. And the sooner he realises that, the better. Now, I'm going to say this, alright? Ben Shapiro and Bernie Ecclestone have made one thing fairly apparent in their voicing of these supposed discoveries, alright? That they're too willing to take a viewpoint and stick with it, and try and find as much evidence as they can to support it, and dismiss any evidence against it as being brainwashing or other things like that. I'm angry, put nicely. I'm upset, I'm disappointed, and I'm angry that myself as a human being actually has to share the human gene pool with people like these two. Alright? If you want to build a belief, you build a belief based on evidence, and you look at every single piece of evidence. Don't care if it's for or against what you believe. And in actual fact, you form your beliefs based on the evidence, not the evidence based on your beliefs. Alright? And I truly find it annoying that these two come out and say all this stuff and expect people to follow them and say nothing about it. article actually has nothing to do with these two. It's a little bit more sensible. But it is pretty interesting to hear. The Nintendo 3DS game Dead or Alive Dimensions has caused a little bit of concern over its view facility, namely the fact that you can actually take upskirt pictures of some of the female characters. Alright? Now, it's not that that's the concern. It's more the fact that 3 or 4 of the female characters in the game are actually under the age of 18, which in Australia and a fair part of the world makes the taking of these pictures child pornography. Now, like I said, well, like you probably would have guessed from what I just said, I actually checked online for the profiles of some of the characters. There is explicitly one 16 and one 17-year-old in the game, right? And they're both female, yes. Another one's male, but there is another 16-year-old, but he's male, so he'll probably wear trousers, which means, yeah, no likelihood of that there. But it is, saying that as well, there's probably a little bit of concern in that too. Plus, there are 2 others whose names are, whose ages are not given, but can be implied simply from their histories and a few things like that. They are under the age of 18. Alright? And yeah, I can see that. I can see how that kind of works. I mean, it kind of crosses that, it kind of sits in that grey area between, alright, legally able to engage in sexual activity to some degree, but not legally able to be taken, have pictures taken of them if they were flesh and blood human beings. And in that respect, you can actually be arrested in Australia for that type of thing. I mean, I've actually seen it been talked about in the news a few times. But the fact that the classification board actually tried to contact the distributor and not the game creator about it is a little bit worrying. And moreover, it's kind of the wrong direction to go, because, and some people have said this in comments on these articles, that they're talking to the wrong people, and I agree with them. I mean, the game developers are the ones who set the ages, not the distributors. Right? The distributors just say yay or nay as to whether they should do it. But yeah, it's something that can actually be reset fairly easily. I mean, just bring the ages back, just bring the ages up to 18 and all things fine and cool. Okay guys, I'm not going to have a question for this week's Madness Ride like I have in the past couple. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll see you guys on Friday for Vent. And yeah, until then, talk to you soon. Bye.